Hey, it's my video blog for week 2, 260 MC, looking at art and change after the Tate Modern visit. I was pretty uninspired by the visit to the Tate, didn't really see anything that captured my imagination at all. Found it a lot of the work was very sort of, to me, meaningless and unimportant, so I've chosen to look at a British artist called Derek Riggs, who's probably best known for his work working with Iron Maiden and the famous British metal band. And he's done a lot of their kind of album covers and promotional artwork for their singles, which has often proved to be striking, provocative and iconic. The two images that I'll be sort of discussing in this video are from the band's second single Sanctuary and the single Women in Uniform, which are the first two albums both released in 1980. The first the first single Sanctuary depicts the mascot of the band, Eddie. He's called Ed the Head, standing over the body of Margaret Thatcher, who of course was Prime Minister at the time, having stabbed her. Well, he's holding a knife, she's on the floor dead, so he stabbed her. And quite obviously this created a huge amount of controversy, as I'm sure it would even today if you had someone with, David Cameron's dead body on their album cover. Initially, the band's reaction was that it wasn't a serious kind of attempt at an assault on Thatcher, and it was just a joke at the fact that obviously the band's name was Iron Maiden and her nickname was the Iron Lady, which is basically a synonym for Iron Maiden. And so the joke was that the band were trying to remove her, so it was under their name. So that seems to be the intended meaning that they wanted to put out. But I think it's possible to look at this image and say how it reflects on a much deeper, maybe even unintentionally reflects deeper. Obviously they're band from part of East London called Leighton, which is certainly in the 1980s and still is a very working class, very, not the sort of place that Margaret Thatcher or David Cameron would be popular at all. And to coincide with that, I think it was the 1979 election where Thatcher won that particular area of East London and voted for a Labour candidate called Brian McGee. And while the band have never been explicitly political, have never kind of stated their views, it is possible that they were also anti-Thatcher, and obviously Derek Riggs would have reflected this as he was working to the band's brief, and so reflected this by obviously killing Thatcher. So that's a meaning that I can draw from it, even if it's not an intended meaning. The second album, or the second image I'm looking at, is, like I say, taken from the Women in Uniform cover, which released on the Killers album in 1980, and it shows Margaret Thatcher hiding behind a wall with a machine gun, waiting for the mascot Eddie to walk towards her, presumably so she can jump out and kill him. Again, the band, when asked about this was quite controversial at the time. When asked about it, the band said that it was just a joke and it was a reference to the Sanctuary cover and how Thatcher was taking revenge. Nothing particularly serious. As I say, this was released in 1980, so at the time, even if their intended meaning was genuine, but if you look at it as a modern audience and you see some, Margaret Thatcher dressed up in a British Army uniform with a machine gun if you look at the image, it appears to be you see something like a council block or block of council flats in the background, so probably quite a poor area, and so she's waiting to jump out and machine gun this guy, and that actually takes on quite a deep meaning, quite a dark meaning, if you bear in the historical events that have occurred in between the release of this cover and present day. Obviously, because in 1982 the British Army operated I believe, unofficial shoot-to-kill policy. Of course, this was under Thatcher's Prime Minister. This was while Thatcher was Prime Minister, and so to look at her It's a scene image of her lying in wait, about to kill someone. We don't know the meaning for it. Eddie clearly doesn't know that it's coming. That actually takes on quite a dark and very serious meaning when you look at the historical context that it now has. So yeah, that's how I think Derek Riggs' work, in some ways, is perhaps more important than he ever intended, because of events that have happened since. It's certainly within British heavy metal music. These are two very iconic, very famous covers. So he's got a legacy he can speak of, and possibly what is most interesting to me about this task is the way that, certainly in the Women in Uniform cover, that historical events that occur after a product's release can change and influence their meaning. And that's my video blog.